Okay. Hey, friends, if I had any, we seem to have zero people on the stream. I guess that's okay. If I were holding a high school reunion, I wouldn't go either. So I can't blame you for that. Uh, I am looking at my image there and wow, I am pale. I look awful. I was doing so well last month with regular walks and getting out and exercising, and then I tore a meniscus. That was last month, and it's limited my time outside, and I've become a Minnesota ghost. It's terrible. Okay, well, if nobody's showing up, this will be a quick one, an appropriately quick one for the subject. So I'm just going to mention that there are high school reunions going on right now. And I discovered an invitation to go to my 50th high school reunion back in Seattle, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Oh, hey, we got somebody here. How is my sound coming through? Does it sound okay? Let me know if there's a problem there. Anyway, so there's a high school reunion going on, a couple of them actually this week, back in Western Washington State, where I come from. And I've been to one of these before, and I decided not to go. Um, in fact, I've decided not to go to most of them because it's these aren't great experiences. So I was a high school student in 1975. Yeah, I'm ancient. And this was back in Kent, Washington at Kent-Meridian Senior High School. Uh, a, a pretty good school, I thought. I was happy with it. It had a long history there in Kent. My parents both went to this high school, so it was sort of fulfilling a family tradition there that most of us then went to Kent-Meridian High School. Uh, it was a fairly big school. It was how to put this? It was one of those typical American schools where a lot of the focus was on sports. So I did not fit in very well. My father was a football player in the high school championship team way back in 1955, 56, something like that. Uh, so there was a tradition there too. And I'm afraid I disappointed him because I did not turn out for any sports there, which meant I was totally uninteresting to most of the people at that school. Um, I was on an academic track. This was something that I think more schools ought to do, and I know a number of them still do, that you've got your general curriculum, which meets the state standards, and then you also recommend all the students planning to go to college that they take a certain number of advanced courses. So, like I took 3 years of German, for instance, because foreign languages were valuable for those going into college. Uh, you could graduate with just a little bit of understanding of algebra. And no, that wasn't good enough for me. I went on into calculus. So there's all these little things that you can do to improve yourself. And a lot of schools nowadays still do the same thing. Uh, I'm all for that. It's a fact of life that if you are going to become a welder, which is a very good career, and was also something I would like to see more people doing is these sort of industrial arts. So if you were going into that, you didn't need to know calculus. So don't force those students to take it. It'll just drive them away. And other students who want to go on for more advanced degrees, even a bachelor's degree, you do need to get through some calculus at some point. So, having two tiers like that is just fine. I approve of that entirely. And it should be done without stigmatizing people who are going for the non-academic careers. Yeah, if you're doing automotive repair, more power to you. We need those people. So anyway, there I was in this school, which had this huge emphasis on sports, and this is also true of many high schools now. And I think it detracts from the whole experience. I think it's one of the reasons I did not find the previous high school reunions at all satisfactory. Why is that? Because if you're in high school, all the incentives to be popular and social and get along well with other people are sports oriented and they don't get you any further. Once you get past high school, a few of them will go on to college sports, but just a fraction of those. And that means that your glory days are built around something that wasn't particularly useful and that you outgrew and left behind a few years after leaving school. So that's not a good thing. So you go to a reunion and you got everybody reliving those great days when they were on the football team. And it's not at all satisfying to the rest of us who want to hear about what you're doing now, what's your life like now. I gotta admit, my father fell for this a little bit himself. Like I said, he was on the varsity football team, which was a great big deal. And one of those disappointing moments I remember is that when I was in third grade, I had an acute appendicitis attack. I was hospitalized. There was an emergency rush to the hospital to get this thing cut out of me. They slashed a jagged tear in my abdomen to try and get to it. And they then had me stay in the hospital for a few days. Okay, that's traumatic enough. But then it turned out that I was in a double room, and the other person in that hospital room was a guy who had a heart attack. His name was Vernon French. He was the high school football coach, the heroic high school football coach who established a lot of traditions. The football field is named French Field after Vernon French. And my dad would come to visit me, and he just went all Google-eyed because the coach was right next door. And he wanted to spend most of his time talking to the coach. Okay, that was not a great experience for me. But well, just the appendicitis was a terrible experience. But then having your father neglect you because there's a football hero next to you, that wasn't particularly good either. So that's what happens when I go to these reunions. Is I'm not a member of the club, never was, and all the members of the club are now old fuddy-duddy insurance salesmen and car salesmen and this sort of thing. And they've got nothing interesting to say anymore. But they want to say it a lot anyway. So it was an unpleasant experience to go to that reunion. Um, so no, I'm not going this year. Also, another thing about it was that when I went back to that area to go to the reunion, I could stay at my mother's place. I was more interested in visiting with my mother than the stupid reunion. But my mother died last year, so yeah, why bother? Sure, I could go visit my sisters and my brother, but uh, they don't have nice familiar house to stay in. So yeah, kind of just blew that off. Anyway, I have this. Oh, let's see, can we get it in focus? Get in focus. It's in blue, so it doesn't want to focus on it. It's background. Well, okay. Anyway, this is my senior year yearbook, and I was browsing through it. And the terrible thing was, I had forgotten most of the people I went to school with. I did a little sampling exercise and I went through the pages where they have all the photos of the seniors. And I would say I could vaguely remember maybe 10% of the faces on there. That means, remembering their names and knowing what they were up to and in high school and all that kind of good stuff. And they were just strangers to me. So again, why should I go? Um, Several of them I do remember vivid. I had some good friends in high school. And one of the disappointments of the last reunion I went to is the ones I was good friends with were smarter than I am, and they did not attend the reunion. So I wasn't going to see them there anyway. I kind of suspect that would be true again this year. Anyway, so yeah, I'm going to just say I don't recommend going to a high school reunion. Maybe if you have good friends there, that would work. But otherwise, no. So here I am. I was reading through this stuff and I said, there's multiple reunions for my class going on this week. So why not just throw another one on the pile and do it digitally? They should all be sort of online digital sorts of things because, we've dispersed many of us. Most of us are living completely different places and going back to the old digs to reunite is a big hassle. I think it would be great if they did this virtually instead, but they don't. We are students from 1975. We didn't know what the internet was, so this was not going to happen. Oh yeah, the Hawaiian shirt. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I have been deprived because I can't go outside. Well, only a little bit because of this darn torn meniscus. So I haven't been able to walk around and I'm turning pale and it's going to be horrible going back to work in the fall, I hope. And I just decided, okay, I got to do something to cheer myself up. So I ordered a couple of Hawaiian shirts so I can pretend it's a nice tropical summer while I'm trapped indoors, away from the sun. Oh, it shows, doesn't it? Ugh. Anyway, okay, we got a few comments here. Uh, German was probably helped the history of developmental biology. Yes, it did. I know. When I went to school, when I went to the university, I focused on developmental biology, and there's a tremendous amount of papers written in German. And nowadays, I would struggle much more. But back then, I had enough fluency in German that if I just sat down with a German English dictionary, I could work my way through, and I wasn't confused by the grammar anymore. But yeah, it was great reading all these old German papers, some of them by Nazis, unfortunately, but there were some good work there, so that was really useful. What do you mean? You might have established a level of popular familiarity with many of your classmates. No, I didn't. I was a boring nerd. I have now become much more exciting, of course. But in the 70s, I was just a studious little dork. And no, I would wander the halls of the school reading a book as I went. So that sort of thing. So I think people might not have recognized my face without a paperback in front of it. Yeah, there was no familiarity there. Oh, your classmates didn't? Yeah, they definitely did not have a familiarity with me, which was okay. I mean, I wasn't trying to cultivate a fan base or anything stupid like that. Although one other little anecdote from those days that tells you exactly where I stood in the class is, uh, you know, there was this test, the SAT, that everybody had to take to get into college. And one of the things they would do is they would send out letters to all the students who did really, really well on it. And they had this thing called the National Merit Semifinalist and Finalist stuff. And I blew the doors off that test. They just, I think I might have missed 10 points out of the total of whatever it was, 1,200, 1,600 or something. Anyway, so I did really well on that test. And they sent out a congratulatory letter to me and the other students who did well, and also to the principal of the school because they could use this as advertising for the quality of the education there. And so they got all these people together, and they invited all of the semifinalists to a actual huge auditorium event where they brought us up to the front of the class and introduced us and told all these wonderful things about these brilliant students they had, with me being one of them. There were four of us, so we had four students who were brought in. And it turned out to be kind of embarrassing because we got the four students up there, and the principal went down the row telling everyone their name and what they did and all the exciting things that they were going to do with their career. And they went through the first three, and the principal knew them by name, knew that so and so was a star on the basketball team, and this woman was a great debater and all this other stuff, and introduced them to the entire class. And then they get to me, and the principal looked at me and he said, uh, "What's your name?" And I had to remind him. And you could tell he was standing there trying to think, what did this person ever do that was notable that I wouldn't have experienced? And he was totally stumped, and he just stopped. He said, "Okay, this is Paul Myers. Congratulations. I wish them best in college," that kind of thing. But it was kind of frustrating to be that much of a ghost at my high school. Anyway, so yeah, I don't have really great memories. I wasn't actually a major, I wasn't going on dates. I wasn't popular with the girls. And you're looking at this face and this body, and you're saying, how could that be? How could they spurn Adonis like that? But no, I was kind of a nebbish. Uh, but I will say that I did go on a date in my senior year, and it was with Mary Journes, who I had a crush on, and she was willing to go on a date with me. And we had a grand time. And then afterwards, she was in the foreign exchange club, and she got called up, and she went to be a foreign exchange student in Thailand, and I didn't see her for a year. Yeah, that's how popular I was. However, when I went off to college and got a little bit more comfortable with social sorts of things, and after Mary came back from Thailand, we did get together and started dating, and eventually we got married. And she's still here with me. She couldn't make it to this reunion because she's working right now. So I had a chance at a reunion with two people, and she didn't make it. So it's just me. Yeah, that's sort of reflective of my entire high school social life. Let's see what else have people said here. It's weird that reunions would be fragmented. Never attended any of mine though. Actually, it's not so weird if you think about it. Everyone graduates. There is no structure after that. You might have been a big man on campus and you might have been active in this as the student body president and all this other stuff. But once the school ends, you're just a person with no authority and no influence over all the other people. And so that's what happens is they go off and maybe they're thinking, hey, I'd like to meet with some of my old friends. And so they spontaneously organize their own little event and advertise it. And that's it. So of course it's fragmented. There's no structure to post high school life. Let's see. Emmy says, I meant more people to know of you because of your atheism and blogging now. No, get real. Uh, this whole thing is it's ephemeral. It's of limited popularity. Uh, most of the people in this town I live in and back in Kent and all this are not that interested in atheism. So why would they know me from that? And as you may have noticed, blogging has gone downhill over the years. It's less and less popular. That you're supposed to make videos like this one now, or you're supposed to be on Substack or some other organized group where they would do some advertising for you. So no, that this is this is not a significant claim to fame. And that's okay. I do blogging because I enjoy it. And I'm an atheist because that's who I am. That's what I believe in. Uh, Big Zebra asks, is it normal for public speakers to double check the people they are going to introduce so they aren't that left flat-footed? You would think so. Uh, that you know, I don't even remember my principal's name now. So I don't think he was that enthusiastic about his students. A few of them, sure, usually the big sports people. Uh, but this was just a job to him. And he had a piece of paper with names on it, and that's all. And he looked at it really quickly before introducing us. You know, so yeah. Okay, what else we got here? We don't have a lot of conversation going on. There's not much going on. I am busy hydrating myself too. I'm supposed to heal up this torn meniscus and I'm supposed to drink lots and lots of water and not put too much stress on it. And it was marginal whether they would do surgery, and so I'll do whatever they can to prevent that. Okay, it's Big Zebra has grade 8 graduation. My principal wore a Hawaiian shirt and socks and sandals. Oh yeah, okay. Casual stuff. I'm all for that. Let me just mention a few more things before I let you all go. Is one of the things that I thought was much more important than sports and all the socialization and dating and things like that. Although, they're all fun, they're important. Was the teachers, and I had a bunch of forgettable teachers actually, but also some teachers who were extremely influential and were really important in my subsequent career. Uh, so I mentioned I took German for 3 years, and my German teacher there was Hannah Borman, who was a really interesting guy. He also taught gymnastics. He was very muscular, and he took a very friendly conversational tone in the classroom. And I think it really helped me to understand the language and also to get fairly good at the accent. My accent is probably terrible now. I haven't tried, but uh, yeah, we had a good time together. So he was a good teacher. He died of cancer several years ago, and that was very unfortunate. Um, Another really important teacher for me was, well, first let me mention one who wasn't quite as important as he should have been, and that was Mr. Putnam, who was the biology teacher. And you would think, hey, biology, I was really enthusiastic about biology. I should have been excited about that. And I wasn't. He was an okay teacher. He taught the important stuff, but he was going straight from the textbook. And most of what he was teaching, I already knew. It made biology the most boring class I had in high school. Far more interesting to me was my chemistry class. I had a chemistry professor, Mr. Thompson, who was, as near as we could tell from what little he told us was a story, he was a recent PhD. He graduated with his degree, and then finding jobs was difficult. And he took on teaching high school chemistry as sort of an interim position just until he could get something better. But he was phenomenal. That was the best course I had in high school because Mr. Thompson started teaching us straight from the textbook. And then he got so exasperated, he gave up and he said, nope, we're rolling everything back. I'm going to teach you guys about significant digits and logarithms and basic algebra, and we will build from that. So he gave us a wonderful experience learning about, significant digits and doing calculations. It was all math, and it turned out that was the most useful thing I came out of high school with is, a skill for estimation so that you can quickly arrive at an approximate answer, and then having the tools to be able to calculate everything appropriately. This was 1974, 75. So we were doing all of this with slide rules. So it's another thing he taught us is how to use a slide rule, which surprisingly has turned out to be a really useful skill as well. I got to tell you, if you're in high school, learn about logarithms. Logarithms pay off so well in subsequent classes. Learning scientific notation and exponentiation, how to analyze things quickly, it'll pay off so much. So yeah, I had that course. That made me happy. Um, Another class that surprised me was I took an anthropology course from Mr. Cosgrove. And Mr. Cosgrove was a very laid back teacher who seemed to like his students. And we just had all these conversations, these wonderful conversations. It's the only course I had in high school that even mentioned the word evolution. And it was great. That was it for evolution. My biology course did not really talk about it. So that was another disappointment with that course. So Cosgrove, though, was just such a sweet guy. Uh, all throughout several years of high school, his his classroom was the meeting place for a lot of us nerds who would get together over lunch and play cards. We were playing hearts and all this sort of thing and talk about stuff. And he'd be there just having his lunch and joining in with the conversation. It made me really comfortable talking with a knowledgeable adult about these subjects and also having a good time. So I think it probably influenced what I thought of grad school and college is, yeah, this is where grown-ups get together to talk about real science and have these pleasant conversations about it. So yeah, um, let's see. Oh, are you really going to make me talk about the recent deaths? So Ozzy Osbourne and Malcolm Jamal Warner, all seem to be good people. Well, was Ozzy? No, Ozzy was the Prince of Darkness. So no, he wasn't a good person, but he was an interesting and exciting person. And yeah, so senior year in high school, we really got into music. However, let me disillusion you. We weren't, the class in general wasn't into metal and hard rock. The most popular music at that time was, as I recall, let's see, it was Elton John. Yeah, you turn on the radio and that's all you heard was Elton John. Um, who else did we listen to? Uh, it was a lot of soft rock sort of stuff. And when I when I went off to college was when Bruce Springsteen was really taking off and dominating everything. So those were the kinds of songs we listened to in high school. I personally had a great fondness for Janis Joplin. So I loved her music and her voice. And also Jimi Hendrix was big on my record player. Yeah, we used record players then. Anyway, some of the most popular musicians I liked all seemed to die of drug overdoses. It's very unfortunate. Oh, let's see. Big Zebra attended a funeral the other day of an 81-year-old teacher who had died. This youngish guy showed up to pay his respects. When he was very young, he had a terrible time reading, and the teacher had helped him greatly. Oh yeah, okay. That's that's one of the sweet delusions of teaching is that you'll actually make a significant difference in somebody's life. Um, and I have had a few nice letters from past students, but I'm not I feel like one of the reasons I'm not that sweet and popular is I'm a fairly hard teacher. So I'm always giving out difficult assignments and I'm piling lots of math on them. That's mainly what you do in genetics is lots of math. And in our cell biology course that I also teach, it's a lot of biochemistry. And biochemistry and math tend not to generate a lot of enthusiasm in the student body because they're so danged hard. But it's okay. I'd like to think that they're going to go off to their careers and someday they'll actually realize, hey, that was useful stuff to know. That's been very helpful. But at the time, it's often this is an obstacle to my grade point average. Um, but that's okay. I care about long-term results. Yeah. Another feature of college educations too is that everything's integrated. So one of the rewards for me is that I'm giving students basic understanding in core concepts that they will then use in their electives, their more advanced courses, uh, and when they go to graduate school, so that it's all important in that sense that I'm responsible for building a foundation. And as you know, foundations aren't exciting. Most people don't look at a house and say, "Oh, look at that magnificent foundation. It's beautiful." No, they're looking at all the stuff on top, and that's okay. Okay, a question. Do you have to balance a lot of chemical equations in organic chemistry? I assume so, but I don't know beans. Well, yes, it's kind of essential. Yeah, you need to be able to, you know, the whole thing about thinking quantitatively. That's what you need to do. You may not be doing exactly the same stoichiometric calculations, although you are in some cases. But just being able to think in quantitative terms. That's why I mentioned Mr. Thompson. He taught me that so well. That's how I approach all of sciences. I got to master, the quantitative aspects of this field in order to know what I'm doing. All of science hangs on the thread of math. You need math. Oh, you recall reaction mechanisms in organic chemistry. Oh boy, yeah, yeah. Redox reactions, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, in my cell biology course, we spend so much time on that. We're just following the bouncing electrons and showing this is how you generate energy. This is how the energy is utilized in the cell. It's all about electrons flowing through the cell. Um, if I were asked what is the most important concept in basic biology, it's understanding electron flux and proton flux. All those things you got to know what those ions are doing because we are electrical ionic beings, and that's how we operate. So, okay, just a few more minutes. If you got questions, fire them off now. Uh, my voice is going. It has been going all along because uh, I not only am I not walking anywhere, which is driving me nuts, but I'm not getting out and talking to people. So it's probably a good thing I'm doing this, just to get my voice back in practice and start thinking verbally again. I have been so isolated for the past month, and I'm going to start screaming soon. But this voice is so poorly used. I can hear it all scratchy and creaky. I should drink more water. Well, about you guys, but I know if I stop talking for any length of time, my voice just drains away, and my vocal cords get all phlegmy and thick, and of course, maybe most people talk more than I do. Yes, I was looking through my yearbook, that we had all our friends sign it and all those sort of things. And I got one comment from somebody who said, "Yeah, you never talk much." They did qualify and say, "But what you say is usually worthwhile." But the key thing was I was notable for almost never speaking. I didn't speak up in class either. And now I'm one of those professors who tries to coax his students to speak up and say something in class. Uh, I was a poor example of that when I was a student. Okay, looks like a good place to wind this up then. Thanks for stopping by. I hope I have discouraged you from ever going to a high school reunion. They're just not that interesting. What would be better is if you're ever back in your hometown, look up some of your good old friends and just say, "Hey, let's go out and get a beer together or something." I think that would be far more satisfying and far more interesting than expecting a random collection of your former students or your former peers to get together and have something interesting to say. Okay. So there, a wise reaction, wise bit of advice from the old gray-haired man at the end there. That's what we do with our high school graduations as we get out of that school and we go on and become smarter and learn things. So you go out and do that, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks. We'll just end it right there. Thanks for coming by. I'll try to do this more often. I've just been wrecked by this damn meniscus breaking on me. Uh, it kind of takes the heart out of a lot of things. And I get inspiration in the summer from going out and looking at spiders and things like that. And I can't do that. I find a few in the house, and that's my excitement. Okay, we'll talk to you later then. Have a good time. Don't go to your reunion. Yeah, and enjoy school while you can.